Welcome to Coach Fishbowl 2015. I'm Jenny McCrane, past president of the Washington chapter of the International Coach Federation. I'm joined today by three esteemed coach members of the Washington State chapter to demonstrate the art and practice of coaching. We're doing this in celebration of International Coach Week. It's the 20th anniversary of ICF. Today, you'll witness a coaching session followed by a comments and a debrief led by our mentor coach Molly Brown. Normally, coaching is done in private to assure confidentiality between the client and the coach. So you are privileged today as a review of this coaching experience. So I'd like at this time to introduce our coaches and let you know them a little bit, and then we'll get started. So, Jenny, would you like to begin our introduction?
Sure. My name is Jenny Van Hoff, and I'm a PCC coach. I've been coaching for about 5 years and love it. I'm currently in the middle of revamping my business and moving into relationship coaching, and it's been very exciting and fun to be gaining a certification in relationship coaching. And in addition to that, I'm also a certified Daring Life facilitator with Brene Brown and her work of shame resilience. So just excited to be here today and looking forward to coaching and getting some feedback.
Serving as our client today is Kathy Simpkins. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kathy Simpkins, and I am an ACC coach and own a business called Brave Change Coaching. And I help disheartened, stressed, and exhausted women rediscover and redefine who they are in life. I myself worked in healthcare for 35 years, transitioning through 7 totally different types of positions, and then in 2012 decided to retire, in quotes, and become a coach. And I love it. It seems to be the culmination of my career. And I do both immunity to change coaching, energy leadership coaching, all within the paradigm of career coaching and life balance for women.
Thank you. Welcome. And our mentor coach today is Molly Gordon.
Hey, I'm Molly Gordon. I've been coaching since 1996, which kind of blows my mind. I joined ICF in 1996, so happy anniversary, ICF. I'm on the faculty of the University of Miami Coach Certification Program, and am, in addition to being a master certified coach, I trained with Invite Change a couple of years ago to become a certified mentor coach. So developing coaches is a passion of mine. My company is Shaboom Inc. Life Could Be a Dream. I've done a lot of work with entrepreneurs over the years. And these days, my business is really expanding rather than focusing in it to work with anyone who wants to live with less friction and greater ease and just plain be happier.
Okay, well, welcome to all of you. And with no further ado, we're going to begin our coaching experience. So take it away, Jenny and Kathy.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Kathy.
Hi, Jenny.
Good to see your face.
Thank you.
With me. What would you like to be coached around today? How could I best serve you?
Well, this problem that I'm having, the issue that I'm dealing with right now, has to do with my time management, which is something I never in a million years thought I would have a problem with, because I was the time management queen. Now I seem to be in this space where I set aside, I actually calendar an hour and a half every morning to do writing. And I have yet, well, no, I did it once. Over the last couple months, I actually got up and did the writing, and this is writing to do blogs or just general writing to get clearer about where I am and where I'm going. I also would like to be a better meditator. I set the intention, I listen to tapes, I work out regularly 3 to 5 times a week. And I'm always listening to these tapes and I get all jazzed up. Okay, I'm going to really start meditating. And for some reason, I'm not doing it. And I really want to get some clarity about what it is that's keeping me from doing that.
So the issue for you today then would be clarity that's getting in the way of you participating in these activities, or actually more managing your time? I wonder, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I think it has a question to do, it's about really priorities. If I were to set that as a priority, I believe that I would do it, but it's just amazing to me all the things that come up that I just have to do.
Okay. For the sake of our time today, you mentioned 2 concepts. You mentioned writing and meditating. I'm wondering if one of those is more important for you to kind of dive into. One show up as a little bit more, just important.
Well, I think probably the writing, because I feel there's more block around it than the meditating.
Okay, fantastic. So what would a win look like for you? At the end of our session, we've spent some time discussing writing and how you've set apart some time to do it, but it's not really happening. What would a win look like for you at the end of our session?
Well, I'd actually feel excited to start writing. that would be a big win.
Okay. So some excitement then, and instead of maybe this lack of clarity that you mentioned, would be a better place than where you're at right now.
Yes, and as you're saying that, it's I'm recognizing this feeling of dread.
Okay. Would you be comfortable to tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it has to do with not being able to organize everything that's in my head.
Okay.
I do this thing of gotta listen to this, gotta read this. It's almost maniacal. How many things I'm trying to stuff into my brain. And so then when I go to sit down and write, I'll start writing and it's like I'm chasing rabbits, I'll flip into another thing and I'll think, oh, I want to go look this up. And then it's like an hour later, I look at the clock and I've been on this goose chase following one idea that pops into my head after another.
Okay. I really appreciate you just kind of taking the time to really express your situation. It gives me a lot more clarity. Would you mind telling me a little bit more about the purpose of this writing? What's behind your motivation to write in the first place? What's that about?
Motivation, yeah. What is my big why? Why do I want to write? Because I guess one, I think I have a lot to say. And I really believe that it's a way to communicate with a larger mass of women than I can do through one-on-one coaching. I mean, I think it's extremely important. And I want to be able to convey key ideas and concepts to people. And, I want to get feedback on it. With blogs, you get a conversation going, and I can sure talk to myself quite well all day long, but it's like I keep saying the same thing.
Right.
It would be great to hear some other ideas and get some other input. And I'm so excited about women and where we're going as our gender and our place in humanity as it's evolving. So yeah. I really want to be able to do that. And I have grandchildren, and I want to encourage these women who are now in their 20s and 30s to kind of set a different model for future generations. So I want to write.
Right. I hear some passion in your voice when you talk about that from that place. Did that resonate for you kind of in the same space?
Caution.
Passion.
Oh, passion. Yeah. Passion. Yes, I do. I feel really passionate about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so just to clarify, this is writing then for your business that you're setting apart time to do in the morning and then finding yourself getting distracted from.
Yeah, and it's interwoven in that, of course, is the whole being. So, and this has been kind of one of my theme songs that we women, certainly in my generation, have had to separate ourselves. And this notion of balance has always been very kind of premier. And I don't think there should be any balance. It's all about being whole and integrated, the balance of what, So, yes, I feel very passionate about that.
Yes, fantastic. So when you were talking about the generations of women and where we're at now, and the fact that you're a grandmother and you have this information, this stuff that's within you, I wrote down here in my notes, I have a lot to say. There was a great energy when you were communicating that, and I'm kind of wondering. What gets in the way when you sit down at your desk in the morning and you're ready to go? What gets in the way of that energy, that flow that you just communicated from?
Oh, probably a sense of confidence in being able to organize ideas.
Yeah. So what would confidence look like to you when it comes to organizing?
That I would have a plan for what I was going to write about. That I knew some sort of a process for how to write it.
Okay. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's probably something in that because I don't think I had a very good education as, like even my own children, my own daughters did in learning how to write in high school. And because of the nature of the courses I took, a lot of the writing that I did in college was more like research paper writing, and I learned how to write grants and do research. But I don't think I've ever really learned how to write like articles like people are going to read, and especially today, people only read like the first couple paragraphs and skim the rest. So I think some of it is maybe just not knowing how to begin.
And earlier you'd mentioned the idea of balance, and that balance was this, it's more of like an integrated thing, and putting it all together versus trying to have it balanced. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, you also mentioned another word here. I don't think I wrote it down, but it was that there was an order to your writing and a process. And I'm kind of curious what your concepts are about writing and process. what's your concepts about writing in order? What are your beliefs behind that?
Wow. So I know the parts of a research article. I'm not even sure I know the parts of how do you write. Maybe I ought to read a book on how to write blogs. I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess the mechanics of it, I probably just don't know where to begin. I think that's really true. I don't know where to begin.
So it's more like a formatting, like, your opening paragraph and the body of your work and your closing paragraph, or you tell them what you're going to tell them and then you tell them again and then you tell them again. Right. Is that the area where you're feeling less confident, or is it more in the content area? Will people like it? Does it matter? Is it important? Am I saying it right? I'm kind of curious if one of those areas stands out for you as more less confident.
Wow. That's like, I feel like yes and yes and yes and yes. Okay, so you want me to pick which one feels the most iffy? Let's see, probably not will people like it. That I don't know. I think I've kind of, I'm okay with my vulnerability in that way,
Yeah.
There's something else there, and I think maybe it's that I'm gonna look stupid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and that's a difference to me. Looking stupid versus whether or not people like it is a magnitude of difference for me.
Yeah, I can feel that. Tell me about does that go back at all then? Earlier you'd mentioned the education aspect and not having been trained in there. So just to clarify where that looking stupid is. Is it more along that idea of not having a solid writing education then, or is it just where does that land for you, that idea of looking stupid?
Well, it's interesting. So I think I just put something together here. So there's this piece of me constantly reading because I got to know everything. Well, what's that about? Well, it's about, I'm going to say something that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So the not looking stupid, I think it has something to do with wanting to make sure that I got it right. And of course, this is why research was such a, when I did the part of healthcare where I was doing research, it was like such a great fit because, you could ad nauseum go into these things and into detail just to make sure it was right.
Right.
So I think there's a component of that in there.
Yeah. So getting it right then is an important thing.
Yes, and that really fits in with this little misperfection thing that I have. Yeah. It's got to be done.
Is there a permission slip that you could write yourself that would encourage you to be I want to say more open, or maybe a little bit self-compassionate when it comes to your writing? What kind of a permission slip could you give yourself in this area?
That's an interesting idea. I think I could actually do that. I think I could do some quiet time writing on that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's coming up for you?
Well, this notion of self-compassion.
Yeah.
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 And you know, when you were speaking earlier about your writing and the wisdom and the experience you've had and this inspiration for women, the passion that you had was really inspiring. And I just wanted to take a moment and really acknowledge that I see a lot of passion in you in that area. And earlier you'd also mentioned that you had a lot in your head, you know, a lot of thoughts in your head and a lot of different information in your head. And so I think that when it comes to content, you have both a beautiful, you know, energy and a lot of information. So if we were to stick with this concept of self-compassion and just kind of come up with a way where maybe you could hold a little bit more of a self-compassionate space for yourself, what would that look like for you?
Well, I think it would look like a place where I could write and just put things out there. I mean, you know, I'm making an assumption here that if I put something out there, it's going to be wrong. And so, you know, it's like I don't have to start with something that is that I'm not confident with. I mean, I can start with something really small, right, and just keep like putting my toe in the water and going deeper and deeper. I mean, there's a lot of kind of bland stuff, I guess, that you can write about that is pretty simplistic. But, you know, I have a lot of judgment about that.
We'll have to do that on another call, right?
Oh, wow, yeah. Wow, that's big. That's really interesting. That's like huge. I just realized that my judgment about being simplistic and simple, you know, my need to be, you know, really sort of saying something with a lot of punch and a lot of power is preventing me from putting my toe in the water.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that you just use that phrase, because one of the things that when you were describing, I was going to say, it kind of sounds like permission to just put your toe in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's yeah. So judgment. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Good old judgment, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we were to stick with that same permission slip concept that you were willing to play with, is there an actual permission slip that you could write yourself right now about judgment or a judgment-free zone? Or I'm just wondering if you could put those two things together in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something like, Kathy, you have permission to write your first very simple, straightforward blog on, let's see, what's one of my favorite topics? On one of my favorite topics. I'll just leave it like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
And how does that feel for you?
That feels good. That feels like I've got some direction and some focus, and actually some excitement about doing it too, which is what I really needed instead of dread.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I just want to acknowledge you, Kathy. I love your passion, and I really appreciate your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Just spending these brief few minutes going through that and sharing that with me and allowing me to help you find some ahas was a blessing to me. So I just want to take a few minutes and thank you for that. At the beginning of our call, excitement was one of the things, and clarity around your writing was one of the things you were looking for. I'm kind of wanting to know if you have any takeaways or wrap-ups as we're ready to close our session today.
Well, just what I said, that I do have some new insights about my judgment getting in the way of writing something simple. And, you know, that's where you begin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
So I'd like to thank Jenny and Kathy for that wonderful coaching demonstration. And now I'd like to invite Molly in, and she's going to go through some comments to help us all learn from this demonstration. So welcome, Molly.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. There were a number of things that I really appreciated about that coaching session. And one of them, I'm delighted to say, was the coaching agreement. For anyone who's developing as a coach who's watching this, pay attention to how Jenny created with Kathy a very clear and complete coaching agreement, even though she didn't have a whole lot of time. The chief reason that I see that people don't pass their certification or credentialing exams is that they don't have a coaching agreement. So it began with not just getting a topic, but clarifying, what does it really mean? Is it looking at what's in the way of writing, or is it managing your time? So you asked clarifying questions about that. You clarified with Kathy what's most important. You've raised a couple of different things. There are a few directions we should go. What's the most important thing to focus on? And then you also invited her to frame measures of success for the session. What would a win look like? At the end of this conversation, what do you want to walk away with? What will make this time well spent? So that was just really nicely done and in a very straightforward way. I also appreciated, Jenny, the way you deftly asked for permission at several points in the session. The first one I noted was when, Kathy, you brought up a feeling of dread. And instead of just going in and going after the dread, Kathy said, would you be comfortable telling me more about that? And it's just a really nice way to develop coaching presence, to develop trust and intimacy, and to keep the connection going so that the client feels safe, client feels sane, seen and heard. You had some nice, powerful questions. What's behind your motivation? What's really going on that's driving you to write? What's important about this? Lovely observation and question when you observed the quality of Kathy's energy and passion at the beginning of the call. And it's like, wow, with all this moving forward, what gets in the way? And I liked that because it was more powerful than just saying what gets in the way. By tying it back to Kathy's desire, stated desire for the session, and by making an observation that connected her with her own passion, it's like, yeah, wait a minute, what is going on here? And it just deepened that question in a very simple and lovely way. You just, I think, very skillful at getting to clarity, Jenny. What would confidence look like? And your questions were simple, you know, and you did extremely well on direct communication. And I love this as a demonstration that powerful questions don't have to be complicated questions. In fact, as we know, complicated questions are rarely powerful questions. So, what are your concepts and beliefs about the writing process or writing in order? You really got into some very rich and deep territory in not a whole lot of time. There were a couple of places where you tended to frame questions in a this or a that. Let's see if my notes are clear enough about that. You would give her a little context from it. You said this, and I'm sorry, I couldn't take notes quite fast enough, but rather than a completely open-ended question, you tended to set things up as you said this and you said that. Would you say that it's a this or would you say it's a that? And I think that tended to dilute the power of your questions in a couple of instances. And when you got to the permission slip, there's an opportunity at that point to partner more powerfully with the client by asking an open-ended question about where would the client like to go? Where would the client like to look next for a resolution or for insight? What occurs to her rather than offering a solution of your own, which is a good solution, but to be even more powerful, to open that up to the client. You really had a lovely presence throughout. You had said at the beginning, and I think this is when we were all off camera, you made the remark to Kathy that you take notes and that you wanted her to know that if you were looking down, you were still with her. And you really appeared to be with her throughout the whole time. Taking notes or not, your presence was palpable. And one of the ways that you expressed that was through the use of acknowledgement. And I thought something you did really elegantly was that throughout the call you acknowledged her passion. And then at the very end, you used an acknowledgement of her passion and vulnerability to bring back her intentions from the beginning of the call and ask her about takeaways. And again, in just a few words to explicitly tie together, this is what you wanted, this is where you were coming from, what are you taking away now? Really, really nicely done, in my humble opinion. Let me see. Toward the end of the call, and how often has this happened to us in coaching, a client comes upon some great, big, hairy, juicy topic, and you've got 3 minutes.
Yes.
And that happened with the idea of feeling judgmental about being simple and simplistic. Something to consider is the possibility there of acknowledging, well, we have 3 minutes left, and this sounds like a really big topic. What would you like to do about that? And that gives the client the ability to formally benchmark it, create a parking lot, plan for a future call, make a commitment to do some private reflection on it, whatever she wants to do. But just to go ahead and voice, wow, this is big. This looks really big. What do you want to do with that, given the amount of time we have left? And that's just a way to handle those kinds of things. So those were the things that stood out for me. And that was kind of aerobic feedback, I see. I'm wondering if you have any questions or thoughts from having been in the process.
I think for me, it was fun. I am a, I want to say, time and I don't get along. So basically, the 20-minute concept was a pressure for me. I did notice myself doing the this or that in the middle, and I was like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have open-ended that. And so that was something that I did notice during the process. I felt, I think, maybe a little more constrained than I needed to around the only having 20 minutes concept. And so looking back, I'm hoping that I didn't lead. But I see there's some areas, even like with the permission slip, which I kind of offered as a reframe, but I didn't actually use the word frame your perspective or, give yourself a permission, or that I could have slowed down a little bit and just asked a few more questions to keep the space open-ended and continue to form small connections throughout.
Yeah.
So I think the time thing was on my mind.
Well, you did your presence was so nice. I wouldn't have guessed, except that as a fellow coach, I could imagine, wouldn't have guessed you were under time pressure. It felt pretty darn spacious, all things.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jody, I think the original design for this was for me to pontificate and then hear from Kathy and Jenny, but if it's okay with you, I'm thinking a three-way might be more fruitful.
Absolutely. So whatever can in the debrief that works for you, would love to just hear all of your experience and what the learning was for all of you so that we can all share in the learning. So please go forward.
Well, so I'd love to check in with Kathy and see what your experience was.
Yes, well, it was a really, a very good experience for me. And I've been coached before, but the type of coaching I've been doing has been very different. And I was really surprised at how deep the coaching went right away. And I felt like Jenny was really able to pull out of me pretty quickly what the real issue was. And I think it's because I felt immediately safe with her. So there's something about that coaching style that she displayed that I felt like, well, this is okay to talk about. This is fine to talk about, even though I know, it's like in the back of my mind, there was still this, wow, this is being videotaped. What am I going to do if I break down? What am I going to do here? I don't want to break down on camera. So there was a component of that was going on for me. But I think, honestly, I would even have gone deeper with Jenny because of the safety that I felt. There was some restraint on my part because it was being filmed. And so I just want to own that and put that out there. Mm-hmm. So it's very good coaching.
That's great. I'm really glad you brought that up, Kathy. And yes, that is a powerful presence that can put someone who's being videotaped about something that's very close to their heart and allow you to be really quite vulnerable. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Yeah. Great.
Holly, do you mind if I address? I'm sorry. Do you mind if I address what Kathy just said?
Yeah.
First of all, I wanted just to tell her thank you for trusting me. I always feel so blessed when clients trust the space that we've created. But I also felt that we could have gone deeper. I felt that, and so that I think there was, just when she said that, I realized that when we wrapped the session up, part of me was thinking, is Kathy okay? Like, did we just touch enough, or did we, and knowing that we were we're filming this and it was a public forum, so to speak, I wanted to honor, that safety and space for her. But the session did wrap up, and I was kind of like, is she okay? It was kind of my question.
Right.
And I wanted to acknowledge that I did feel that.
Thank you for that. And I'm remembering a point, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of the way through the session, Kathy, where you looked particularly vulnerable to me. And so there's an opportunity there to perhaps make a remark on that and acknowledge that. And at the same time, knowing that you're on camera, I'm not sure in the moment how I would have made that call. Would that have supported the client or just made her feel like a fly pinned to the board? Yeah. But that's good to acknowledge.
I'll tell you what Jenny did was perfect for me, because I really was very vulnerable at one moment, and she saw that. I could feel that she saw it, and she started, probably that was the period where she said had more airtime in the coaching than any other. So she gave me a couple minutes, or not a minute, a couple minutes, a couple seconds there to kind of bring myself back together, is really the sense that I had while being coached. And that was good. I mean, that was really good. It was like just right. So it took me back again into feeling safe.
That's great. That's really rich. Really rich. One of the things that's worth pointing to is that that's in line with what we've been talking about, is how, Jenny, as a coach, you responded to who Kathy was being, and not just to the surface, the what of her topic. At no point did this devolve into a how do we fix Kathy's time management skills problem solution conversation. And that's worth pointing out, because if you don't know how easy it is to go there, you might not be aware of how big a deal it is that you guys didn't go there, that you stayed with the underlying, with the richer territory, with the more meaningful territory where there could be real insightful leverage for Kathy. So that was well done too. Take one more pass through my notes here. I'm loving the question, what are your concepts or beliefs about writing in process or writing in order? That's a really big question, but again, quite elegantly phrased. You managed to point Kathy towards deep, rich veins of inquiry without using a lot of complex language. And I admire that. Yeah, again, aware of the limitations of time. I don't know if on reflection there was time to go here, but it might have been useful to invite Kathy to do some exploration of self-compassion. It's like, how would you like to look at that? We don't have time right now, but in what way would you like to look at that after the call? What would support you to look at that? Is there any kind of accountability you want around that? So the whole set of competencies around planning and managing time and accountability can actually be addressed pretty briefly if we just raise them and give the client, have confidence that our client is able to answer them or put markers in place to answer them offline on their own. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of got clumsy there, but.
Yeah, I think so. If you're speaking about like the getting a commitment, setting a goal, kind of what's the plan, and I will admit that's one of, if I were just to be self-critical, or I don't know what you want to say there, but that would be one of the areas where I'm weaker as a coach. I did feel like part of me was like, okay, I know that this is part of the process and I need to kind of solidify that. But again, I felt like in the moment when she hit that big aha about feeling judgmental about herself, that trying to keep it, just hold that space for her in the last few minutes that we had was more important than that. And that was a judgment call I made. But like what I'm hearing you say is that just a plan for her to continue to explore some of these questions on her own is
Right.
kind of a plan. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A plan doesn't have to look like, it doesn't have to look like a writing plan.
Right.
It doesn't even have to look like a reflection plan, but the invitation, what do you want to do to follow up on this call?
Right.
What are you taking away? How are you going to bring that into your life? Is there any kind of support that you want to consider before we wrap up, or any accountability you want to design? So very often when a client's, the guts of a call is about insight, there's no planning per se, but there's still an opportunity to invite the client to kind of put a stake in the ground or draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to go away with this in mind. I'm going to go away and reflect on that. I'm going to be curious about where I can get support in my life to at least raise those questions.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I think that's all I have, Jody. And you're on mute, Jody.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Again, we won't do lip reading. So I'd like to invite each of you, if you would like to just give us your one takeaway for today, and then thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. It was a pleasure, everybody.
So, Jenny, do you have a takeaway?
Yeah, I want to say slow down. Even more. Just slow down and trust the process, even if it's just a 20-minute process, would probably be my takeaway.
Great, thank you. Kathy, takeaway?
Wow, one takeaway. Then I need support for myself to work through this writing.
Okay. Molly, takeaway?
A lot of coaching can happen in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I want to thank all of you for being here, for allowing us to step into this vulnerable coaching moment and to have the wisdom and the learning for all of us as coaches and as non-coaches as to the power of great coaching, the art of great coaching, the practice of great coaching, and in this celebration of the 20th anniversary of ICF. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you again.
Okay.
Thank you, Jody, very much.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank